Eggman is a character that I feel like hasn't gotten nearly enough merchandise. Now sure, he does have some, but compared to characters like Sonic, Tails, or even Shadow, he doesn't really have much, especially considering that he is the main villain of the Sonic series, and always has been. It's crazy to me that hardly any companies ever make merchandise of him. Now sure, Jax has been spoiling us a bit when it comes to Eggman merchandise, but Jax is pretty much the first to do so. So, today we're going to be looking at the history of Eggman merchandise. So without any further ado, let's get into it. The year is 1991, and Sonic the Hedgehog just released for the Sega Genesis. So, what better way to celebrate than a plush set? Here we see the first Eggman plush, or piece of Eggman merchandise, ever made. He's a rather simplistic plush, being essentially just two balls of fabric with felt details. But despite this plush actually conveys Eggman's design very well, and I'd say it's a great Eggman plush and I recommend picking him up, as he's not really too expensive nor rare. But this plush was also re-released in 1992, only difference being that the plushes were of a slightly larger scale and Stringy Sonic had plastic shoes, but other than that the plush set is basically the same. And around this same time, they released this Eggman plush but sat in a cart. Not sure why, but they released a whole set of plushes just kinda sat in carts. But on the figure side, there was also this little Eggman figurine who strangely isn't wearing his glasses. This would technically make them the first Eggman figures, but I don't have a lot of information on them. But now we get to the real first Eggman figures. Of course, I'm talking about the Sonic 3 tie-in figures. In the US and the UK, we got this Robotnik wind-up figure, and it was based off of his Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog design. Yeah, during this time period, the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog design for Robotnik was the most popular. He's a pretty simple wind-up toy, and his gimmick was that he could avoid falling off surfaces. But even though the one that I have, I got new in bag, the gimmick just doesn't work anymore. I think it's just too old. I mean, I can kind of get him to do it, but it just... no. But they got something different in Japan. Since I don't believe Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog was a thing in Japan, they got this Eggman toy that was based off his in-game design, although this version functions essentially the same way. But this one is actually quite rare and can get pretty expensive for a Happy Meal toy. There were also these mini figurines released by Tomy, yes that Tomy, and these were also in the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog style. There's also this tech toy Robotnik figure that's more or less the same. But then for the holidays, they released this Christmas theme Eggman plush, and I'd say this is a very underrated plush as I never see anyone talk about him. I mean, wouldn't you be delighted to open up a Christmas present and you saw this little guy in there? Then for 1995, we have two Eggman plushes. We have this Suction Cup Eggman plush, not entirely sure why, but I guess he'd need to stick to the window, so that way he could watch Sonic from the outside. But then we have the legendary Basketball Eggman plush. Now, due to Eggman's height, he would have a clear advantage at basketball compared to Sonic. And, fun fact about this plush is I almost bought it 6 years ago. He was on eBay for like $30, and I was about to get him, but then something came up. Then when I got back to the listing, he had been bought. It is unfortunate, but at least I came close. Then there's this 1996 Eggman plush that is holding a basket. But he, for some reason, isn't wearing any gloves. But then 1997 rolls around with a slew of Eggman products. We have the SEGA World Sydney bendable Robotnik figure and the Robotnik drink cup. Also, the Robotnik plush. These were all based off of his Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog design and were exclusive to SEGA World Sydney. And they've become pretty rare and even holy grails in some people's collections. Speaking of holy grails, we have the Sonic the Fighter's Eggman plush. He's also taking the whole gloves off approach, but I guess that's fitting for Sonic the Fighters. This guy is decently rare and quite expensive. But wait, there's more. There's also a knockoff Sonic the Fighter's Eggman plush. Now, I am sticking to officially released merchandise only, but a lot of people collect the bootleg set, so I figured I'd just mention him. It's the same as the official one, just a bit worse. This floppy mustached Eggman plush was released, at least I think, as I can't find anything online about him, other than he was supposedly made by a company named PMS. Other than that, there was only an eBay listing I remember seeing years ago that said he was made in 1997, but I've also heard that he came out in 2011. I'm not sure, so please leave a comment if you have any more information. But on a better note, there's also this little Phoebe Robotnik figure. 1998 did have some Eggman products to offer. During this year, there were 2 Sonic Burger King promotions. There's this unnamed set that contained this little Eggman ball, and then the Sonic R set which had 2 Robotnik figures, one that just ran away from Sonic, and another that's in his comically oversized Eggmobile. But then we get to 1999, and this is the magnum opus of Eggman plushes, the epitome of greatness, the Sonic Adventure Eggman plush. And I actually happen to own him. Now, this is the first ever plush of modern Eggman, since this set is based off Sonic Adventure. And this plush was my holy grail for many years, especially since it was during the Eggman merchandise dark age, but we'll talk about that later. But in 2022, I finally got him. But let's get back to the plush. He's extremely accurate, and his quality is unbelievable. If you can get this guy, get him. He doesn't show up often, and he can be very expensive, but every now and then, he'll come up for a good price, and you gotta get him. This guy is just immaculate. Then 2000 came along, and my favorite Eggman figure was released. Yep, I'm talking about the Toy Island Eggman figure. This guy's awesome. He's even in scale with the Resource figures, and surprisingly is in scale with Jax's figures. Now, his articulation isn't great, being a Toy Island figure, but he is superb in all other categories. And he came with a whole bunch of accessories. Sadly, I only have a few as I got mine used, but he came with rings, Chaos Emeralds, a fully articulated Kiki figure, and Kiki himself came with an accessory, being a bomb. So, technically, this was a 2-pack for the price of 1. The figures are just incredible. But it can be a bit hard to find one in good condition, especially since most of them are missing at least one part of their mustache. Yeah, the mustache was made out of plastic rather than rubber or a more flexible material, so the plastic near the nose got pretty thin, and it'd break off if it wasn't properly taken care of. But if you can get him, you really should. Toy Island did also make this bendable Eggman figure, but there's not much to note about him. Then in 2003 we got, I'd say, the bulk of the Eggman plushes that you'll see for sale. There's this Eggman plush that was released for a Sonic X set. Now, he is a bit of a downgrade from the Sonic Adventure plush, but he does have more of a resemblance to Eggman in Sonic X, so he isn't a direct copy. But something that is a direct copy, but a bit worse, is the play-by-play Sonic X Eggman. He's clearly a copy of the Sonic X Eggman, even though his nose does look a lot more like the Sonic Adventure plushes, and he's made out of much cheaper material. We also have this little Eggman figurine, but those were only in Japan. The US would only get their first Eggman plush from Toy Network, and this is the most popular and common Eggman plush, the Toy Network Eggman. But Toy Network actually released 3 versions of him, and I own 2. There's the standard release, the 2006 Sonic X release, and the Easter Eggman, which is my current holy grail. But let's look at them in order. This guy, like all of Toy Network's other plushes, came in many different sizes. He's actually one of the only Eggman plushes that were able to include all of his details. Yep. Even the prized Sonic Adventure plush forgot the glove details. But that doesn't stop this plush from being very cheap. After all, it was a carnival prize. Oh yeah, something I forgot to mention before is that every Eggman plush we've talked about was only available in UFO catchers or at special events, and this guy here was only available in crane games and carnivals. So, up till now, no Eggman plush has been commercially available at stores or online. But back on topic, this plush is pretty good, and I'd consider it the best Sonic plush that Toy Network actually made. It's actually kind of a funny story on how I got this guy. I was at RetroCon, cosplaying as Eggman, and I found this guy here. Luckily for me, I only had to pay $5 for him. Onto the 2006 Sonic X release, he's mainly the same, other than his head is a bit smaller and his nose is much larger, and they made him look a bit more angry. Then there's the fabled Easter Eggman plush, which I have never seen for sale, and there's only a handful of images of them. If anyone watching this video has them and would like to sell them, leave a comment, I'd be happy to negotiate. Now we enter the dark age of Eggman merchandise, mainly for modern Eggman merchandise. The next piece of merchandise for Eggman, we'd have to wait until 2011, where Jazzwares would release their modern and classic Eggman figures. Now I'd say they're pretty good for Jazzwares figures, and they were a welcomed addition to anyone's Eggman collection, especially after 5 years. But Jazzwares actually planned to release an Eggman plush, and it was shown off at Toy Fair, but it sadly got cancelled. The next Eggman figure and plush would be released in 2014 for Tommy's Sonic Boom line. They released an Eggman figure which was pretty good, and a Big Head Eggman plush. Now, Big Head Eggman wins me over with his charm alone, but the issue with these new Eggman products was that they were only based off of his Sonic Boom design. Now, it doesn't bother me too much, but I would not consider it to be a modern Eggman figure. And yeah, there were also the many variants of the Eggman figure that were like all the other Tommy's Boom products. But then in 2015, GE would release their classic Eggman plush, and it was awesome. Sure, it still wasn't modern, but it was a great plush. GE has always had good quality Sonic plushes, and this guy is no exception. And during that time, First Force Figures also released their Eggman statue, which looks pretty cool, but still it isn't really a figure or a plush, rather it's a statue. Then 2016 comes around, and that is when Tommy released the 25th anniversary classic Eggman plush. Still wasn't modern, but it was amazingly done. From the crushed velvet material to the embroidered glasses, Tommy nailed this plush. Kid Robot would also release 3 blind bag figures of Robotnik, one on his Eggmobile and one outside of it. A keychain version of Robotnik in his Eggmobile also exists, but again, not modern. But now we get to the plush that ended the Dark Age. The first ever commercially available modern Eggman plush. Of course, I'm talking about Tommy's Modern Eggman plush. This plush released in 2018, and it is a wonderful Eggman plush. Most of his details are there. It is missing the jacket details on the back and arms, but it isn't too big of a deal, and this plush was everywhere. No more were the dark days of having to pay $90 for a Toy Network Robotnik who was missing his goggles. Now that we have been blessed by the Tommy gods with this beautiful Eggman plush, the Dark Age was over. And later that year, we also got another classic Eggman plush in this cool pose. It's a good plush, but it's not the holy blessing that was the modern Eggman plush. But outside of Tommy, we also got the Funko Pop Eggman, which I'd say is one of the better looking Funko Pops. There's also this Loot Crate exclusive Eggman bobblehead, who I always thought looked pretty cool. And there's also this Eggman keychain and squeeze toy that were made by Gaia. I'm not entirely sure when they released, but I assume it's around this time, judging from the packaging and the design of Eggman used. But then the year after that, Jakks got the Sonic license, and we got the Eggman Bendy figure. The figure was probably their best Bendy figure, and classic Eggman is one of their better plushes. It is really refreshing to see consistent Eggman merchandise now. Then we get to my year, and the Jakks Articulated Eggman figure released. This has to be one of the best figures that Jakks has released. His articulation was impressive compared to the figures that Jakks had already released. His sculpt was perfect, his paint was great, and the pose with the expressionate hands was incredible. There was also this Eggman Rubber Duck released, which, very nice. The year after that, we got the classic Eggman figure and the modern Eggman plush. This modern Eggman plush isn't too great compared to Tommy's, and that's mainly because of the flat style that Jakks uses for their plushes, as I've talked about in a previous video. Their classic Eggman figure was pretty good though, although his round body does limit the amount of poses he can be in. Toy Factory also released a mini Eggman plush. Then we have the Death Egg Robot set, and this is by far the best set Jakks has released up to now. The only one that could compete with it is the Eggmobile set, but we'll get to that. There was also this Eggman statue released by the company Numbskull. Then we get to 2022, and we got a ton of Eggman stuff last year. So, let's talk about it in order, at least I think. There's first the LEGO Classic Eggman, which looked off, not the best start, but it gets better. There's also the movie 2.5-inch Robotnik figure, then we have the 4-inch Robotnik figure, which came with a drone and a cup of coffee. I must say, having a little Jim Carrey figure next to a Sonic display is just surreal. I'm really hoping for an Agent Stone figure when Sonic 3 comes out, but that'll be next year. Then we got the Death Egg Robot movie version, which, sure, it is a bit underwhelming, but I still really like the set and it has a nice display with the whole bridge. We also got this 2.5-inch version of the standard Eggman figure, as well as a 2.5-inch version of the 4-inch classic Eggman figure. And GE finally made a modern Eggman plush. Although it is pretty similar to their classic Eggman plush, I think they really could have made him look a bit more unique. Maybe have him look a bit more angry with more defined eyebrows, and make him a bit less round, more modern Eggman shaped. We also got the Bendem's Eggman, but he lacked a lot of detail. Play-by-Play also threw their hat into the ring and released their Eggman plush and their mini Eggman plush. But then, we get to the magnum opus of Eggman merchandise this year. The Eggmobile set. This set is just immaculate. You get 2 figures, Sonic and Robotnik, the Eggmobile, a base with a stand, and a ton of swappable parts. I always wondered why no toy company ever made a toy like this. I mean, it'd be like printing your own money. This set is fantastic, and it is up to par with the Death Egg Robot set. And to round it all off, Hallmark also released this little Eggman ornament, but I sadly was never able to find it. Now we get to this year, 2023, and this year's Eggman lineup wasn't too impressive. We got 2 plushes by GE, those being a smiling mini Eggman and a shocked mini Eggman. We also got the Egg Mug, which isn't really merchandise, but it's too cool to not mention. We also got this funny Eggman plush, which I think is one of the best Eggman plushes released in recent years, and I'd go as far as to say the best. We also got the disappointment that was the Death Egg set from Jax, but we also got this keychain Mr. Dr. Eggman plush and the Mr. Dr. Eggman figure from Jax. There was also this little Mr. Dr. Eggman figure released in a few 3-packs. And we did get the LEGO Eggman minifigure this year, which absolutely incredible. There was also this Goo-Jitsu Eggman, but it lacks a lot of detail. And to round us off, in current times, the most recent piece of Eggman merchandise is this little classic-themed Christmas 2.5-inch figure from Jax. And that's the history of Eggman merchandise. Overall, I feel like Eggman hasn't gotten nearly enough merchandise, especially modern Eggman. Despite all we've talked about, most of them were little promotional figurines, Japanese exclusives, or some type of carnival prize. Plus, most of them were classic Eggman. Although, things have gotten better in recent times, mainly thanks to Jack. A huge collecting goal of mine is to have every single Eggman plush ever released. And I'd say I'm getting there. The Toy Network Easter Eggman plush is my current holy grail. Like, even the Sonic Adventure E102 Gamma pops up more than Easter Eggman, and Gamma is the rarest Sonic plush of all time, and it's literally deteriorating over time, so in theory it should be rarer. But maybe Gamma now has a worthy opponent. 2020 man from the future here to tell you that I missed some earlier. So, let's go over the ones that I forgot about, and the ones that I found. The first are these 2 mini Robotnik figurines that I believe are keychains. These were released in the early 90s, not entirely sure when, but it was around that era. Next up was this Eggman keychain that was released in 2004, and it was for some sort of Coca-Cola promotion. My reason for not including it earlier, same as the last one, is I found out that both of them existed once I was already mostly through the video. Same case with this pixelized 16-bit Eggman keychain, which still can't find very much information on, and a part of me thinks it's custom made. Then there is the Minimates Eggman, which was released 4 years ago, and my reason for not including it is I just forgot about it, as I never really saw it for sale. And that's the same case for this mini, I believe, Toy Factory Eggman keychain. He's in the style of one of those miniature Toy Factory plushes, and I have seen him around. I have planned on getting him, but I just have never really seen one in person for sale. And then the most recent one, released this year, was this Eggman fidget spinner. My reason for not remembering this is that it's not really a figure, plush, statue, or keychain. It's a fidget spinner with stickers of Eggman on it. But fun story on actually how I got this. I was at Replay Toys, and because it was Halloween time, they were giving out, just stuff for free, and I was given that. So, now, that has officially been the entire history of Eggman merchandise. At least I think. Thank you all for watching, I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you have another one that I missed, send it in the comments.